Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show again. My aspiring friends. I'd like to welcome my good friend Blake Simone. Blake Simon.
Hey.
Blake Simone. Hi.
Whichever
Anyway,
one you like.
so he's out in Louisiana. But first and foremost, I of course need to introduce him by how I know him. So this guy, the funny story is I actually know him in China. We both were vacationing.
Right.
So we were on a bus from Chengdu to see the big Buddha, in cave in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a 2 or 3 hour bus ride.
Yeah,
so
giant outdoor Buddha.
Blake and his friend, another American. So then, I got on the same bus, and then it was like 5, 6 of us. And I got scared just because it's just like the bus itself is so small, and then who knows where they would drive us, right? but then I know these two guys are freaking out. So then I went out there, and I just went up, check my, introduce myself to them. I'm Ricky from Boston. Where are you from? All that stuff. Louisiana. Oh, so we're Americans. Okay, good. Yeah,
you did listen to our story for a while before letting us know you spoke English.
Right. Well, that's true. Right? That's true. I did talk to the driver for a little bit as well.
Right.
Then we communicated, and then we actually had lunch afterwards, and then we actually had quite a bit of adventure. Hopefully I can put some pictures of our adventures together, and then we went back to Chengdu, and then we went separate ways. However, ever since that time, even though it was like a good 4 or 5 years ago now, we have remained good friends, and we just kept in touch.
Yes.
And so,
each other once or twice in Boston, I think.
Right. I mean, you were sleeping on someone else's couch.
Yeah.
Well, visiting another friends.
Before another trip to Portugal at that time, before another overseas trip.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Right. And definitely, welcome you to, this chit chat, and I just want to talk about your big project that you actually have done, and then some of the aspiration that you have with the project. First of all, let's talk about your background, who you are, why do you get into doing what you're doing now, and what's the project that we are talking about.
Okay. All right. Well, I grew up in a really small town in Louisiana with about probably 5,000 people. There's probably about 4,000 people who live there now. But it's close to a bigger city called Lafayette, which a lot of people are familiar with for like Cajun culture, music,
Little
food,
lobster.
Little crawfish, little lobsters. Yep. And actually my hometown is surrounded by those ponds where they pull those little lobsters out of those crawfish out of. Okay. I went to school about 30 minutes away from where I'm from at that university in the bigger town. Okay. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Of course, I get typical story, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I started in undeclared, then I was in nursing for a while, pre-med for a little while.
Really?
I kind of focused on biology side. I had to enroll in X-ray school, which is like an X-ray tech at a hospital.
Okay.
And it took me 2 years to get into that school, and then I went to a local school in that same town, and that was a 2-year on-the-job training. So you go into the hospital, take X-rays of people, you learn, you have classroom and everything.
Yeah.
And I got out of there, and I started working at a small hospital in the town I'm originally from, that small town. And I worked there for about 5 years, and it was a good job, but I wasn't really satisfied. And I don't know, I had dreams of traveling and doing other things, and so I re-enrolled in college again, and I had always been interested in environmental science and biology and coastal wetlands in Louisiana because I grew up right around that area. So I enrolled again, and I graduated there, and from there I went straight to Alaska 3 days after I graduated. I got a summer internship with the Bureau of Land Management.
Summer in Alaska means winter, like winter hour time.
Yeah, and I was in Fairbanks, which is like really cold city. It gets to negative 30s, negative 40s Fahrenheit there. So, so I did that for a summer, had a great time. Basically did a bunch of environmental science, water testing, and got to camp outdoors a lot. It was fun, and lots of partying too because the sun doesn't go down really.
Oh,
It's
that's
always
true. Yeah,
so
that's right.
you're outside at midnight and they're having like a marathon race or a baseball game, in daylight at midnight in Alaska. So it was fun. And then I ended up getting a job on a seismic ship in the Gulf of Mexico, and I did a marine mammal observation there.
Okay.
So I did that for it was a temporary job for another summer, and just basically like oil exploration ships, and they have to have biologists on board looking for whales, make sure they don't come near these seismic guns. And then all those jobs led to the job I have now, which is my favorite and kind of what started me going back to college as a wetland biologist on a project, very large coastal monitoring project in Louisiana. And that's where I'm at now. I've been there for 6.5 years, and I'm a coastal scientist, coastal biologist. And so Louisiana is losing, and this is one project's on it we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Louisiana is losing a lot of land, and it's been for many different reasons. For leveeing, the river doesn't flood and deposit soil anymore, and saltwater intrusion is killing some freshwater plants, a bunch of reasons. But because of that land loss and its value to the economy of Louisiana, mostly the fishing industry, the oil industry, everything that provides a lot of jobs, the state funds restoration projects in Louisiana. So they do different things to restore the coast and try to get things a little more towards the natural environment, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need people to monitor the effectiveness of those monitoring project for the whole coast of Louisiana, wetland monitoring. So we just take a ton of measurements and then send it off to the client, and they decide if they want to keep funding certain projects, or if they want to, this project isn't working, if they want to shift some funding around.
Right.
That's all their decisions. We basically just gather all the data.
So there are like data scientists within your clients group that will actually analyze the data as well, right? Okay.
Correct. And all this data is public, actually, because it's paid for by taxpayers. So anyone can go on the website and look, see what's happening around their coastal land, basically.
Okay. That's cool. That's that's definitely something that I wouldn't imagine myself doing. But,
well, it's a very extreme job sometimes, because in Louisiana it gets very hot in the summertime, especially in August. So
like humid too, right? Like humid, hot. Yeah.
So we take we're on airboats a lot. Do you know what an airboat is?
Yeah.
So we're on airboats a lot, and you have to jump onto the marsh from the water, and you'll veg a site, we call it, where you have a couple of plots of vegetation, and you see what's different from last year, what changes, and sometimes it gets really hot. We're just constantly drinking water and Gatorade to keep up.
Right.
But most of the year, it's a really fun job. Like it's great, and I'm friends with everybody who works there. And
second question is less serious.
Okay.
But I know that you're born American, Cajun, Louisiana, from Louisiana. And of course you have been traveling around the world, and let's talk about that towards the end as well, right? But you're traveling around the world. Have you ever considered like not living in Louisiana?
Yeah, that was kind of the aim of going to Alaska. I wanted to get away from the Louisiana summers to see what it was like somewhere else. And
well, I mean, it's extreme too, right? I mean, one is like below water. Yeah. The other is below Celsius, like below zero, right? I mean,
and I actually made it into an adventure, because like you have certain gaps in your life where, okay, you have time to do this at this part of your life. So I was like, I'm going to drive to Alaska. So I actually drove from Louisiana to Alaska, which is, I don't know, 5,000 miles or something like that.
Through Canada too.
Through Canada, yeah. So once you get to, like, you drive through the US, and once you get to the Canadian border in British Columbia, you're only really halfway there, pretty much. So
Right. Yeah.
And, it seems like, oh, it's not that far, but you have another huge country to go through, basically, before you get to Alaska.
I know how far it is. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but other than Alaska is still your country, by the way. But
right.
think about like living in Vietnam, or like like China, all that kind of stuff.
I would love that. I don't know, have any countries in mind. Like I like Asian country. I love Asian countries. I like European countries, but I think my retirement dollars would probably go much further in Asia than in Western Europe.
As long as it's not Chengdu, like
Oh,
where we met.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
You know, like, anyway, so let's switch gear back to your project. Third question. Your project actually.
Yeah.
So I know that recently, you know, you start not answering my message because you actually went into school.
Yes.
To do a master degree, right, with Penn
Correct.
State
online
program to study geology type of work.
Yeah, GIS,
right.
which is geographic information systems, and
Right.
It's basically taking tons of data and sources from everywhere and kind of making sense out of them and making maps as part of that. You can put things on a map and see. You can run analysis on them and see how they relate to other objects on the map. And a lot of it's not just a environmental thing. Like a ton of companies use them, banks use them, and rental agencies. Like everybody uses those systems to see what, you know, the answers they want based on geographic locations. I like it so far. It's, you know, it's a really powerful skill, I think, to have, especially in environmental science and data analysis and everything.
Right. So let's talk about that project that we have been, you know, keeping listeners like for 10 minutes on. Like, what is the project, and what I would talk about afterwards, like, you know, what impressed me the most, you know, how easy to look at the graphics and infographics and all that. But cool. Let's talk about the project actually.
Okay. Yeah. So the final project of this class, like you learn, it's the first class in GIS, and you learn the basics of using the software and everything. And this project, you were tasked to create a sort of a website. I think I've been here for 6.5 years, so I know enough about coastal wetlands in Louisiana to tell the story about, you know, at least a basic story. And I had to choose my audience, and my audience for this was the Louisiana citizens who are non-scientists. So this isn't aimed at like hardcore science data.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of lots of pictures and video, and making it for people to understand like what's happening with the coastline and everything. So yeah, that took about 2.5 weeks and many hours of working. And because in this class, we just started to learn about the software, but the things I was interested in doing, like showing tidal surge videos and everything that I had to YouTube a lot of things for the story I wanted to tell, you know.
So the story, what's the story?
Yeah, so the story is basically, it's showing people the value of the wetlands in Louisiana. Well, first it shows how much the wetlands are actually disappearing in Louisiana.
Right. Yeah,
and the reasons. There are interactive maps and video animations showing like the coastal land loss over 10 years, 30 years, 50 years. These are projections by the state of Louisiana.
Sure.
And then so the people understand the basics of what we're losing. And then it's important, I thought it was important to tell them why these are economically important, the wetlands are, and like recreationally to Louisianians, especially who live on the coastline, like, you know, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette. These are all big cities very close to the coast. And in 50 years, this wetland loss is going to start affecting some of those areas.
Right.
I mean, it already is. And
right.
When a hurricane comes through, it's, you know, we see that. But so I show the value of the wetlands, like the economic value to fishermen and crabbers, shrimpers in Louisiana, the huge fishing industry here.
Right.
And the value to Louisiana homeowners, because the wetlands actually buffer storm surge. They slow down the water, and the friction of the wetlands can actually slow the winds down, and can really help with hurricane, and at least give people more time to get out, and potentially slow the storm surge enough to where it recedes before it could get to its full potential without those wetlands there.
Just going to ask a dumb question because I am one of those non-hardcore scientists, right? When you say loss of wetland, is it because the land actually sinks into the ocean?
Yeah, so the land is always naturally sinking for the past, you know, thousands of years. It's a natural process of the ground compacting and sinking due to geological movements. And but the other side of that natural process is mostly the Mississippi River would overflow the banks every year and flood, and all the farmland, from the Midwest, all that sediment comes into the Mississippi River, and it would deposit that over Louisiana. That's what created a large part of South Louisiana, the river, over thousands of years, going back and forth and just depositing, creating the land. And so now that the levee systems, people live along the river, so you can't have people's houses flooded every year, and industry,
Right.
Baton Rouge and New Orleans are on the Mississippi River.
Yep.
So they built levees, and now the levees are preventing that sediment deposition from offsetting the loss of the sinking of the land, which is called subsidence. So we used to have both of the things. We had the deposition of the sediment from the river, and we had the natural sinking of the land, and now it's more just the natural sinking of that land without the deposition. And some of the coastal, on my project, some of the coastal restoration projects that I chose to show what Louisiana and some nonprofits are doing about that, to try to offset that, loss of that sediment.
Right. Cool. Without getting too technical, that was already quite technical. Of course, your website was well built, by the way. I just want to say the reason why I'm actually really wanting to talk to you, other than the fact that I want to talk to you, is because of the fact that, hey, like in 50 years, you see all these spread that like the land are lost. I'm like, whoa, this is like impactful. Like, it was a good story to tell. I mean, I was in insurance before, and then hurricane hits, and then every year we sweat just because of the fact that insurance loss, right? Yes. So what were some of the difficulty you faced when like doing this project, and how you overcame these difficulties?
So big in GIS is acquiring the data, learning, okay, in this map they do this type of analysis, or they're doing this. And I sort of had to hack my way through it, because like the software is pretty advanced, and I didn't know how to do like animations and stuff. So
like overcoming those difficulties was just basically like YouTubing, or like just looking for resources.
YouTubing was huge, but YouTubing was key. Like YouTubing has been a part of my life in the last 10, 15 years, where I learned guitar off of YouTube, and it's like such an amazing resource.
No. I mean, and this is how I start doing this too. I mean, in terms, my channel has like, in the like 2 years ago it had like one video, and then in the last month, right during the quarantine, like in addition to my work, I just wanted to do something with it, right? I mean, I'm home anyway, so start the cooking videos, all that kind of stuff. And then how do I do it? It's basically like learning, and I think there's a virtue of like continuous learning. We don't stop learning. Like, I mean, you already mentioned you love going to schools.
Yes.
but I felt like the eagerness or the desire to learn, or like actually go out to find resources to learn, actually sticks. That knowledge and applied knowledge actually sticks with you much better.
I mean, it's such a good time to be a learner right now, like with the internet, so much information. Like, I mean, YouTube, amazing resource. And I bought a class for $12, I think, like a 6-week class, a video class.
Nice.
It's a good time to learn whatever you want, musical instruments, coding, anything,
Right. So next question would be, and it's a huge one. The story that you are telling through your website, instead of, of course, you telling the story yourself like multiple times, many times, but now currently, right now, we are telling your story too. But with your website, what do you hope to accomplish with it? Is it like, as I mentioned, off camera, like, do you want to like the government do something about this, or like we want to like sign a petition, let Warren Buffett like put out some of his personal money to help
that would be nice.
The state out, right?
I think the main goal, besides finishing the class project, but it turned into something more, is to educate. I think just the audience was Louisiana citizens. So like many people here are into hunting and fishing and everything like that. It's the South. People do that all the time here. So, and the places they go depend on really maintaining these lands and these restoration efforts and monitoring them. So I just want people to kind of be aware, and so that's kind of the main goal. I don't and I'm surprised at like how it's being used actually. A few friends of mine are teachers, and they're looking for things to send their kids, and because they can't be there in person with them, so they're looking for some kind of science projects or something. So a few of them have already asked me to use it in their classroom.
Nice.
I guess they're going to send the link to the kids, and I'm not sure.
Education is a big deal.
So that's like the main focus behind this, is to just make people aware, and a lot of people are aware of this, but maybe
not to the degree of the severity of it.
Right, just to make people aware of, this is a real thing that is currently happening and it's going to happen. And the main goal was just showing people how the wetlands are important to the state. And I've had a lot of people from outside Louisiana also tell me and say, like, wow, this is great. I didn't know, it was this much of an issue right now. So for them
and then the next step would be like preventing the loss of wetland, all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, even just telling their kids about it, or something like that. It doesn't have to be calling up your representative and saying, I want more money for these wetland projects. So, but that'd be great too.
Right. And so the education purpose actually serves a lot of people well. Like I'm sure some kids like in school now at home are actually trying to, they want to know like Louisiana as this is part of the country, right? Right. It's just a lot of alligators down there. Alligators down there.
Just a couple, but crocodiles are more aggressive. Alligator, they run away pretty much.
Right, okay.
If you come down, I'll show you some alligators.
But anyway, last question, and this is a personal question, and I think you love this one.
Okay.
What are your dreams? Some of your dreams.
Let's see. Some of my dreams.
Personal dreams, like as in you don't need to work anymore.
Right.
You're done with school. Let's say you're done with school. No obligation whatsoever. You have tons of money. Like what are your dreams?
That's a good dream. I think man, I just love traveling. My friend who was a Chinese citizen but was going to the university here, he ended up marrying a girl in Vietnam in December, and my girlfriend and I and a friend, we all went and had a little friend and reunion there. And so we spent 2 weeks traveling around Vietnam, and it was beautiful and like amazing.
And you got to eat at the same restaurant that Obama ate, right?
Yeah, with Anthony Bourdain and Obama. And we kind of, let's do all the restaurants that Bourdain ate in this city or Hanoi or something like that. So it was great. It was an amazing 2-week trip, and we went to, I think it was the same couple, but they had 3 wedding ceremonies almost, and like just
I had two. Okay, so I thought it was pretty good, but 3, wow, okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they had 2 in the south and 1 in the north, and like they were all completely different and beautiful.
Right. And food is definitely amazing out there, of course.
Yeah, and that's a big part of my dream, I guess. If I had, I would travel somewhere just for food, and so I'll travel somewhere for food, no problem. Like I'll drive to Austin, Texas, which is 6.5 hours from here, to stay a few days and eat at some cool, restaurants or something. And but yeah, like I'd love to see many other countries, and I think we're talking about Japan. My friend, I've been to Japan years ago, and my girlfriend really wants to visit. Just to keep traveling. That's traveling and just living life and having a good time and learning things.
And from what I know about you, you're never afraid to try something new in terms of putting like food in your mouth.
Yes. Yeah. In China, I got to experience some very interesting. I think China and Japan, I have eaten the most interesting food of my life, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, when I go to Louisiana and when I visit you, I will probably say the same thing about deep fried crocodile tail or something. I don't know.
Lots of fried things, lots of things in casings, like sausage type things, but rice and so like nothing too healthy, but you'll sleep really well after you eat these.
All right. Well, it was amazing to learn about your story. Amazing to know about your project and what we go with it. Like your state compatriots. What they or even around the world, around the country, to learn about the importance of your hometown, really your home state, with their natural resources and such. And so I really hope that your website gets more popularity and more hits and more people use it more. like other than the 2 schools that you just mentioned.
Right.
But this already amazing start, to be honest. And I'm sure that your hard work and dedication to this will definitely impact more people. And I'm truly proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
See you next time.
Yeah.
And, actually, when we get an updated version of your website, then we should talk again next time.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah.